Welcome to Unmute Yourself, the podcast. I'm Nancy Medoff, author, speaker, and coach.
And I'm Beth Knaus, creative copywriter and the owner of That's a Spade Copywriting Services. We are done being polite and ready to get real about confidence, boundaries, and self-respect, both personally and in the workplace.
Beth and I first met when we collaborated on the best-selling communication handbook for women, Unmute Yourself and Speak Up to Stand Out. Now we are amplifying our message and taking it on the road with Unmute Yourself, the podcast. Warning, there may be, no, who are we kidding, will be some adult content. We have a bullshit button and we're not afraid to use it.
So buckle up, buttercups, because here we go.
And we're back.
Here we are. We're back, all right. Thank God. I wasn't
back again.
That's right.
What?
Back again. Go ahead.
You want me to tell everybody what just happened?
Yes, I think you should.
So we were recording the podcast and I thought it wasn't recording. So we had to start recording all over again. It was indeed recording, which is a great segue to our topic today. But before we go there, we wanted to shout out to our non-US listeners. Beth, would you like to do the shout outs?
So I don't have a list in front of me, but I know Hong Kong and Iceland are on our list, and the UK and Canada. What else? What am I missing?
Germany, Portugal,
Nice.
Switzerland, the Caymans.
Wow.
I mean, this is just the best. So shout out to our non-USers.
Yeah.
And we have a giveaway that we are running for the month of, let's say for the whole month of October, September into October.
Sure. October.
Okay. So those of you, some of you podsters might not know that ratings matter. Ratings matter on the Apple. So we are doing a giveaway for those of you who like the podcast and would like to rate us. If you rate us and include your social media handle in the podcast, in your rating, we are giving away the beverage of your choice, non-alcoholic, of course. So if you do that, if you write your review in Apple Podcasts, and again, take a screenshot, send it to either one of us on our social media, we will send you over a gift card for your favorite beverage of choice.
Right.
Not, I mean, can we exclude the pumpkin lattes?
I don't think so, although I wouldn't get one.
I just think they're a little cliche, but hey, if that's your jam, go
That's
for it.
right. I think we're in the minority with that, but we're in the minority with a lot of things, so it's okay. So just to clarify for our Podster listeners, Nancy, it has to be an Apple review, correct?
Yep. Yes, please and thank you. Yes, not that we don't love all of our podcast stations the same, but we're talking about the Apple ratings so that
right.
we get listed higher in the Apple.
And I clarified, and we are double checking everything because of our topic today. These things are out of hand, people.
Things are out of hand. Thank you, Beth. So our topic, and it is, the irony is not lost on me that a third of the way through the podcast, I was like, oh my God, we're not recording. So we are talking about the world gone mad at the moment. Right now, we're recording this right around the time that Mercury is about to leave retrograde, the week before. And Beth and I wanted to talk about what's happening, which is the world's gone mad. So I have heard from multiple people things like, I'm in a tizzy, I'm in a funk, I don't even know what's happening, I'm spinning. Beth, what are you hearing?
Yeah, the same thing. You know, I'm losing my mind. I'm dropping everything. I can't sleep. Just all kinds of things that are just out of order, just out of line. No alignment. What do you call that? It's not unalignment, misalignment.
Misalignment. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is actually so common that there is a new term for it. So as you know, we always stay current with current events here on Unmute Yourself, the podcast. And the current term is called post-COVID malaise.
Ugh.
And while we don't want to label it, we're a little over the labels like languishing, pandemic fatigue, burnout, quiet quitting. We do want everybody to understand that this is actually a thing. It's happening. And some people are calling it post COVID malaise. I'm just calling it the general state of affairs. And we want to get under it. So here we go.
Yes. So where would you like to start with that? First, I'm gonna give you a personal story. 2 weeks ago, I decided I'm gonna change cell phone carriers, and we decided we're gonna switch. And 5 phones, 4 phones switch over, 1 phone does not activate. 2 weeks. And what's going on is that neither carrier has control of the phone number. It's my husband's phone. He's losing his mind. And everybody I get on the phone with, they tell me, I've never seen anything like this. And I'm not talking about the first person who answers. I'm talking about the tech people. Like, I go directly to the tech people now. That's how serious this is. And everyone says to me, I've never seen anything like this before. And I'm like,
So glad I could be the trailblazer for the general malaise as it relates to my cell phone.
the malaise. Yeah.
Has it been fixed?
No, 2 weeks today. You know when it'll be fixed? October 3rd.
The day after Mercury leaves retrograde.
That's right.
Okay.
Maybe. We'll see. And
Yeah.
we'll be out of September. I feel like I love September, but man, I think we're really caught in some serious winds of disruption. Winds of disruptions, my friends. I feel like for me, I'm going around my house, and every time I walk in a room, I'm like, my God, that closet's a mess. That cabinet's a mess. My bed is not made the right way. And why do I have these shoes on the floor? And everyone clean out your clothes. And it's not like, oh, gee, a nesting type of homemaking feeling that you might get at this time. It's more of a gather your belongings and run for shelter type of panic and urgency. And I find myself going, what am I doing?
Totally agree. Totally agree. So for me, over the past few weeks, I've been just saying, first of all, everything's a mess, right? I sent Beth a video of my office and what it looked like yesterday, and it was unbelievable. Like, I don't even know how I could function, but we talked about, for me, I have been trying to get back to how I felt last fall. Fall's my favorite season. I love it. I like the candles. I like the leaves. I like the sweater weather. I love all of it. I like the tea, everything. And I had been trying to get that back, and I could not get that feeling back. And thank you, Beth. My hair was static on the microphone. Is that better?
Yeah, and it's part of the course, right?
It's part of the malaise. So anyway, so I was feeling like just really trying to get the peace back, and I couldn't, no matter what I tried. I went to my Thrive list, which anybody who knows me, I have this Thrive list. What do I do to get back to me? None of it was working. So that's when I started to notice other people talking about it. And Beth had a really good point. And her point was that there's something about the September energy. So Beth, why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because I think everybody felt it or is feeling it.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that we talk about it so that it doesn't continue on into October.
Yes. And I think there is this general energy, and then it's compounded by a list of other things. So I think everybody gets that back to school kind of feeling, right? We know it's almost like if you watch the animals outside, their cheeks are all full because they're all getting their food, they're all storing it up. Moms are in a little bit of a tizzy with kids going back to school, or parents, I should say, let me be fair, parents in a tizzy about their kids going back to school, kids in a tizzy about going back to school. And it's just like this ramp up where you're like, okay, now here we go. We're going to go into Halloween, Thanksgiving, the holiday season, New Year's Eve, spending money, dealing with family. And I think we get that naturally. I think if you are a business person, then you have that whole, oh my God, it's Q4, I'm racing to the deadline. How am I going to finish strong, get my sales, do my content, blah, 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 and take off for, whatever holidays I want to take off for. But I think there's so many things. Do you want me to go down the list?
The list of why you think it is?
Of other things that are on the list, I think that are going into it.
Oh, well, I think you covered a lot of it. You covered the.
Yes.
Sure, keep going. Rifle
Okay.
it up. Go.
So we have seasonal affective disorder, which its height is really December, January, February, but it definitely kicks in because we have less light, we have colder temperatures. I mean, naturally, instinctually, biologically, we're taught at this time of year to kind of hunker down, right? It's what we're made to do. We don't all do that because some of us, break that cycle or that mental message that we have, but it's almost like hibernation time. Let's see, we talked about September energy. What else? Oh, well, we already know Mercury's in retrograde because we mentioned that, which whether you believe it or not, I mean, I used to be somebody who'd be like, oh, that's a bunch of baloney, until every time it happens, I can't get out of my own way. And then I'm like, damn, I think this is a thing, right? It's also the new moon. And I also think it's called post-COVID malaise because you and I were just saying, everything is happening, our calendars are filling, the opportunities are coming, and we're struggling to decide. Do we go back to the way we were, which was a little harried and overscheduled? And maybe you like that, and that's great. But if you don't, and you kept telling yourself, I'm not going to do that again, you are still feeling the tug of the whirlpool of the undertow to do what everybody else is doing. Otherwise, you're going to be missing out on stuff. But Nancy's excellent point was we can't compare to last September. We have to go back and compare to September 2019 if we want to say we're not going back to life then, or the way it was pre-pandemic, right? We have to think about, how do we want to start all over again? Go ahead. I'll shut my.
Oh, this was good. It's awesome. So I would ask you this. Are we struggling to decide or struggling with executing on our decision? Because for me, I've already decided. I will not go back to how my life was before. Getting on a plane every week, doing all the things, having big parties, like whatever the case may be. I will not go back to that. So there's a lot that I learned and during COVID. One was I can be happy and fulfilled other ways than my work. I am just as happy having two people over for dinner and spending quality time with those two people as I am with having a holiday party for 50 or 60 people. And for those of you that used to come to our holiday parties, I'm sure that's not going to go over well. There is one person in particular who is on strike because she heard I might not have one this year. And so for me, it's not struggling to decide, it's struggling to execute. And that I think is what's been going on with me. And to your earlier point, I don't know if you said it on the podcast, but you said it when we were talking. You're picking up that energy. So this frenetic energy, it does not matter if I'm the Dalai Lama. When I walked into Wegmans last week or earlier this week, it was the Hunger Games. I don't know what was going on, but the shelves were bare. It was packed. It was the middle of the day during the week. There was like cases of chicken stock like ripped open in the middle of the aisle. I'm like, what is even happening? It felt like it felt during COVID. And I was like, I don't really know. But to your point, I picked up on that and I was agitated and I was, kind of stressed out. And I don't know that that one ever went away. So that brings me back to my point of, if you don't want to go back on the hamster wheel, you have to remind yourself that this is a choice, and you better be damn sure that you do not want to go back on that hamster wheel. Because what I'm finding for me is that I've made this choice to go a different path, and I see everybody doing what I used to do, and my instinct is to want to get back in it again. And I have to remind myself, this is not who I am anymore. You had a great way of saying it. I can't remember what it was. Maybe you'll remember it. I wrote it down. This is not who I am anymore, is what you said, Beth. This is not who I am anymore. And to own that and to be comfortable with that, and to remind yourself that it's your choice, because you will see people doing more. If you're a small business owner, you'll see people doing more on social media. If you are in the corporate world, you'll see people getting promoted. And the people who are getting promoted are the people who are behaving in the way that the company is rewarding them for. And if that's not your jam anymore, you just need to remember that, because that will come up and that will make you feel uncomfortable.
Yes, it's true. It's true. Yeah, and that feeling, I feel like, everybody's got this energy at different levels from different things on that list that I just gave. And when you go into a crowded place, even if you're calm as anything, like there's no way you're not bouncing off of other people's energy. So there's something to be said for maintaining whatever solitude or slow down you have mastered in the past, 24 months, because that's really what you need when you come out of a place like that, right? Is to
So
do that.
yeah, so how do you do that? So that's how do you do that?
Right. So this is interesting. So my husband usually goes to the grocery store on Sundays so he has lunch for Monday. Now, I personally, if I was going to the grocery store on Sunday, which I hardly ever do, I would go at 9 in the morning because I feel like very few people are there. But he's like 5 o'clock at night on Sunday. Okay. Everybody who's at the store Sunday at 5 o'clock is desperate. They're like, I forgot this when I shopped on Thursday. My kid has to bring in 67 freeze pops for his classmates, although that doesn't happen anymore, but you get the idea. And everybody suddenly is scurrying to forget the things they forgot. And they're back there on Sunday night. And it's a zoo. And I said to him, don't go anymore on Sunday nights. Think about when can you go that you can have, less of a crowd, or can you order things online, or how can you avoid being there in that crazy energy?
Yep, I totally. I So that speaks to one of the things that I do, which is knowing my peaks and valleys in terms of, you're talking about timing a trip to the grocery store, which sounds pretty basic, but really it's not. It takes planning. So what I try to do is think about my peak productivity times. My peaks and valleys. I'm much more productive in the morning, much less so in the afternoons. And in talking to you, I realized I also need to look at my peak times of year.
Mm-hmm.
So September, I jam, jam, jam. October, I jam, jam. November, December, I start to kind of take a step back a little bit and, slow down. So, what has it been frenetic in September wasn't my own fault, because I took it easy over the summer. Am I putting undue pressure on myself because I need to do all the things before November or December hits? So, it's kind of like understanding your peaks and valleys and recognizing that that's going to impact your mood and your affect.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. It's about no, but I feel like the whole thing is about really knowing yourself and having an awareness for those things, for, working at your peak, and for just knowing what sets you off, because sometimes we don't. And sometimes we don't know that we're giving off that crazy energy if we don't know what sets us off. Right? We're walking around with it, we're oozing it like it's a hormone or something, like testosterone, or those smell things we give off. What are they called?
Pheromones. Yeah, I keep going back to what you said, which was, that's not who I am anymore. I think that's what you said. And I really like that, because to me, that speaks to your identity. So which comes first, your behavior or your identity? This is actually an old Weight Watchers thing, where you have your behaviors, which then ultimately leads to your identity. I'm a runner. I am a yogi, whatever the case may be. But it's your identity, and it's breaking from the old. If this is what you want to do, breaking from the old, this is what I always did, to this is who I am now, and to remembering that and visualizing it. So I call it reverse visualization. Visualizing. So for me, it was, what did I do during the pandemic, and how was I during the pandemic, that I want to replicate so that I can be that same person now. And I know exactly what it was. I know where I was sitting. I know what I was doing. I know. So for me, it's reverse visualization. It's looking backwards and saying, okay, that is what I want to be moving forward? What do I need to do to get there? Does that make sense?
Yes, and I actually like that you're saying that, because I think in general, the umbrella feeling about the C word is that everything was bad about it, and I don't think that that's the case. I think it's horrible that people got sick. I think it's horrendous that the numbers of people who died did. Of course, that goes without saying. But I think if you look at your patterns and your behaviors, new ones, changed ones, and just how your life was during that time, we all learned lessons, right? About what was important, right? Suddenly it was okay if you didn't get Charmin. You were lucky if you got any brand, and you learned that maybe a napkin could be toilet paper, right? Um, so so yeah, I think it is good to look back, because we had no choice but I think to simplify at the time.
I just said to someone yesterday, I'm trying to simplify. I'm trying to simplify, and it's a little bit every day. So I try to do one thing every day to simplify, because that's when I loved that part of, I just love that part of life back then. Um, but I want to ask you something, and I didn't, for those of you guys that are listening, Beth and I usually go through a rough outline of what we're going to talk about, and I forgot to mention this to Beth. So, is there a payoff to when you're in this state? What's the payoff? Because I was in it for several weeks, for a few weeks, and there's a payoff. I don't. There's always, you are somehow, you're getting something out of the state that you are in, or you would no longer allow yourself to be in it. So what do we think could be, or is there, or have we thought about what the payoff is or it could be?
Well, I think if you're someone who is an achiever, and someone who is high energy, and someone who short term really likes how it feels to kind of go hard in your schedule, that you feel initially like, I am getting some stuff done. But I also think because you've had a chance to see the opposite, you realize sooner that you're doing this thing you don't want to do anymore.
Yeah, I think it's like the switching pain, the not opportunity cost, but the payoff for me is, oh, subconsciously, I'm back to this, go, 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 go. This is always who I've been. This is how I've been rewarded in the past. This is how I've lived my whole life. It's uncomfortable to make a conscious choice to step out and to step off. It's very uncomfortable, especially for an overachiever like myself. And I'm not, I'm not sitting around eating bonbons, as anybody who knows me knows, but it's this identity thing. I am no longer that person, and I am now this person, and that's uncomfortable. So I think the payoff for me was not having to face that uncomfortable feeling.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, because I wrote this down, self-care, if you're feeling this way right now, self-care is not going to fix this. This is not a go take a bath, in my opinion.
Right.
This is like a significant overhaul or a significant conversation with yourself, and consistent actions and behaviors that reinforce what you want to do and who you want to be.
Right. And I think it's helpful too. I mean, if you're somebody who really believes this that we're talking about, and you want to institute these types of boundaries for yourself, it's good to have somebody else where you can be checking in with each other.
Totally agree. So who was that for you?
Who is that for me? Who is that for me? I'm gonna say it's probably Kathleen. We have been mutual.
Oh,
Kathleen. Yeah, she would say to me, "What are you doing that for?" Right? I guess
that
that,
is so Kathleen.
business stuff. Friend wise, like if I don't know, I haven't really felt myself going off the rails at night. I used to go out at night all the time. I love to, meet a friend and chat or whatever. Um, but I really haven't been letting that happen more than twice a week.
Good.
We'll see though, right? Moving forward, there's all these invitations in the power of Q4.
Yeah, so my challenge, so that person for me is Danny. Um, because I can say anything to him at any time and he's just the best. Um, the challenge for me is many of my friends or tribe, as we call them, excuse me, are the overachievers. So when I say, "Oh, I have 10,000 things on my schedule and that's not who I want to be," they're like, "Well, so do I." Like what, or, "Oh, well, you have to be there, I have to be here." Or like I need to find people, find or or realize who the people are in my life that are living this life that I want to live, or the way I want to live, for lack of a better term. So, so that's what's interesting about my tribe, or my professional tribe, is they're all they're all doing it.
Yeah, oh,
So
that's
I
hard.
think
Yeah, I
that,
think it's more of a personal, you need somebody like maybe a little not closer to you, not that your business people can't be close to you, but I think your friends, especially old friends that are close to you, it's probably easier for them to say, snap out of it. Get out of there. What are you
yeah,
doing to yourself? You're
yeah,
burning yourself out.
yeah.
Maybe. I think it depends on the case and probably the person. It's probably person to person, but you should know who those people are.
They can, but there's a part of me that says, "Well, thanks for the advice, but you're running around with your hair on fire, so why should I listen to you?"
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right? Which is not fair, because they can still give me advice anyway. Okay, so let's recap our recommendations for how to get yourself out of the funk, or how to move forward and get out of the malaise, if you will.
Mm.
We have, why don't you start? You can start. I mean, I have a list, but do you want to start?
Okay. So I think, one of the things is that after you're in like a high intensity energy kind of area time, you need some solitude. You need to go sit quiet somewhere. Maybe you need to spew some stuff in a journal, or, mellow music, nice coffee, glass of wine, something like that, or a nice conversation with your spouse, partner, roommate, friend, just to kind of come back down. What makes you come back down?
Mm-hmm.
That sort of activity, something small. And the other thing I'm going to say quickly, I also think that people really want to love fall as their favorite time of year, especially here in New England. And so we're ignoring, that's not happening. It's not, this is the fall. This is a beautiful time of year, right? So we resist a little bit. So I digress. What about you? You have something? I just lost
I
one.
have a couple things. So it's funny when you were talking about sitting quiet and maybe journal. I would add that if I was literally too busy to journal last week, which is bullshit, and we all know that, right? I mean, you can take 15 minutes. So instead, I did a audio journal when I was driving. I recorded like my thoughts, and I was in such a tizzy, I even forgot that I did that until I was going through some old voice notes that I had for myself, and it was it was on there. I'm like, "Wow, dude, you were so like busy that you couldn't even sit down and journal for 10 minutes." So, A, it was a rude awakening, and B, it's a great way to just get your thoughts out
Mm.
when you might not be able to do the whole practice that you do. The other thing I would say is remember your identity and state it out loud. And that reverse visualization that I talked about, which was, how was it before? What were you doing before? And how can you get back to that? And that's something that only you know.
Yes. Yeah. My only thing would be that the other thing I would say is, sometimes we can feel pressured, and, it's okay to say yes and change your mind, which is really key, right? Sometimes we feel a little pressure to do something, put something on our calendar, especially if somebody is asking us face to face. It's okay, a week later to shoot off an email and say, you know what, I didn't realize I'm a little overscheduled. I'd love to be there, but I know it's not good for me. So, okay to say to people, it's not good for me. It's not healthy for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Personal and professional. Yep. And half the time, more than half the time, I'm sure the people are relieved. They're like, yeah, I couldn't really do it either. Like, it wasn't great for me either. So, totally. Love it. Good stuff.
Yeah, I would love
Okay.
to know from our listeners what this brings up for them. So please, comments, you can send us private messages, emails, all the things. Reach out.
All the things, Insta, LinkedIn, our websites, anywhere. Yep. Nothing we love more than hearing from our podsters.
Yep.
All right. Until next time.
All right. May I wish you peace and calm, my friend, in October.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Okay. That's a wrap on another episode of Unmute Yourself, the podcast. We hope you found value in today's podcast. We hope you were able to take a little time for yourself and perhaps think about how you're showing up.
And thank you for all of the great feedback we've been receiving. We'd love to hear more from you about what you think, the tactics you're using every day to speak up, and anything else you'd like to hear about on future episodes of Unmute Yourself, the podcast. You can contact us through our websites. Nancy can be found at nancymedoff.com and Beth can be found at that'saspade.com. Or you can email us at unmuteyourselfthepodcast, all one word, at gmail.com.
We will see you next week, and until then, keep speaking up.